Hello, my name is Christopher Vargas and I'm a student of architecture in the Universidad Simón Bolívar, Venezuela. In this video, I'll talk about the characteristics that make Venezuela and its architecture unique, giving emphasis to the subject we've studied during the term. Venezuela, as the rest of the world, has passed a lot of fast changes in the last century. It's passed from being a rural and quiet country to be a rich importer of crude oils, and to develop big cities, centers of business, art, and knowledge, but as well of corruption, disorder, and crime. Venezuelan architecture has become to be a reflection of all the good and the bad of every period, but it's always had that Venezuelan personality that comes from the mix of races and cultures we have. Color is a strong characteristic in Venezuelan architecture. As we live in a tropical country, the color is always present in nature, and the strong light of the sun emphasizes it, so it's very important to us. In the Universidad Central, the use of color is of key importance. The Central Library is of a strong red because it is the center of the knowledge, the heart that moves the entire university and wants to be a point of reference in the city. Many times the art comes to be the protagonist, as in Plaza Cubierta where holes in the roof allow the sun to reach the murals and statues, or in the Aula Magna where the color clouds affect not only the space of the auditorium but as well its acoustics. Light is in Venezuela, as in every country, one of the first matters to deal with in architecture. The difference lies in the way of using it, because here the sun is very strong and its direct light is very uncomfortable and makes a difference of some grades in the sensation of temperature. Thus, Venezuelan architects use different elements as pergolas, pierced walls, and blinds to sieve the light and protect the user. Jimmy Alcock is famous for the hall of the Altolar building, a beautiful residence that shows the best of tropical architecture and uses solar protection in many other projects. There are as well buildings as the Cubo Negro or Parque Cristal that care nothing about the weather and the solar insolation, and, though are spatially and visually beauty, have terrible problems with energy expenditure in air conditioners and reflect dangerous radiations to the people and plants outside. Texture is given by materials and their expression. The characteristic Venezuelan materials are brick and concrete, being this last one the Venezuelan material for excellence. The Teatro Teresa Carreño and the Municipal Palace of Barquisimeto show how clean concrete can be much more than a cheap finish. It's expressive, rustic, and its soft color relates adequately with natural elements as vegetation. The Torres de Parque Central were the tallest buildings of concrete structure when they were made, and show an elegant combination of textures of concrete and reflecting glass on the windows. Brick's rough texture and color makes beautiful and expressive spaces in many buildings, but are as well characteristic of one of the biggest problems of Venezuelan cities, the slums. In Caracas, this chaotic development covered all of what used to be green hills and mountains around the valley, and have become a dark background to the city. In the acoustical field, Venezuela is not so good. The noises of the traffic, other of the problems of metropolitan areas such as Caracas, the noise of the people, and the sonic contamination in general is an increasing problem which hasn't been solved. At the Universidad Simón Bolívar, for example, the shape of age of the buildings makes that the sound made in a classroom reach the other ones, and the space between the wings of the buildings are also used by a lot of people who contribute to create more noise. However, when we talk of acoustics in theaters and auditoriums, it's possible to find some good examples. Once more, the Aula Magna shows its grandiosity with the clouds of Calder. The auditorium of the Humboldt Foundation, made by Dirk Borghorst, takes the acoustical treatment as part of the architecture through the use of a wooden treatment on the walls and the roof that makes a wave movement as it gets far off the stage. The Plaza Caracas is one of the best examples when we talk about rhythm in Venezuelan architecture. It lies between the Simón Bolívar Center Towers, as well known as Torres del Silencio, and has a strong and clear rhythm given by the masses of the buildings that define the space of the square. It consists of two big horizontal masses that grow in the distance and cross with the torres, which give a vertical erection that leads the view to the sky. Caracas has presented from some years on an increasing deficiency in circulation and transportation, and right now it could be taken as a crisis. The problem comes from the unexpected growing that the city has presented in the number of inhabitants, but that has not been reflected in the capacity of the streets and highways, nor in alternative means of transport. Architecturally, the problem comes when the vehicular movement is put over the pedestrian. The practical impossibility of walking freely through the city because of faults in the infrastructure, inexistent public spaces, fault of connections, and terrible conditions to do so because of the crime, for example, leaves people no option but to use the pathetic public system or personal vehicles, which causes even more traffic. The architects must here look for an increase in the amount and quality of public spaces that work as connections through the different places and that offer recreation in the city. In matters of space, Venezuela has something to give. From some time on, the building as architectural object has been starting to be thought not only as a box, but as a roof that gives shadow and protection from the rain. That fits with the basic need of our land. We have a dry season and a rain season, but we have not big changes in temperature, so we can stand open to the outside the whole year. It's not like this is entirely new. Actually, it is an idea that comes from the modern movement in 20th century. Mies van der Rohe brought it to life with his Farnsworth house, the first house which space is defined entirely by a floor and a roof, but is actually useful only in tropical latitudes. The better example in Venezuela is, once more, in the Universidad Central. The Plaza Cubierta and the corridors show this understanding of our climate, and to walk and to be in them is very comfortable. It is a search that many local architects are in, and some of them related with the tree, the supporting trunk and the protecting surface in the top. Venezuelans usually think we don't have a strong or determined identity, precisely because it comes from the mix of many races and cultures. But only studying a bit one of our patrimonial values, the architecture, becomes obvious that in any other place of the world would be possible to achieve solutions as we do, to solve problems that are, as well, unique. The symbolism of color, the protection of the tropical sun, the art as part of the architecture, the texture of concrete, and the architecture of the tree are some of the themes we've developed in our buildings and cities. Architects as known as Carlos Raúl Villanueva, Jimmy Alcock, Jesus Tenreiro, Fruto Vivas, or Dirk Bornhorst have known to gather these ideas with international knowledge to synthesize it in works that show autonomy and that resemble the Venezuelan identity.